BBC Radio Lancashire at 20 past 11. I'm a guest in the studio this morning is a local author from Burnley who's just self-published his third book, Protegimus. It's Latin for We Protect, and the book's based on the author's real experiences in the armed forces. Peter Briggs joins me now. Welcome to the studio then. So let's talk about the book then. I'm right in thinking that the blurb describes the book as a fictional tale of intrigue and espionage. I mean, you've got me. You've got me hooked. So tell us a bit about it.
Okay, yeah. Absolutely. The main character, Harry Knox, is basically based on me.
Oh, love.
The experiences that I've had are his previous experiences. To a certain extent, I've mixed some other things in there as it went along. But ultimately, he is an extension of me. I'm PI trained, private investigator trained. So again, I've wrapped that into the character, and that becomes the character's main job. So after the forces, he leaves. He finds that struggle of leaving the army, of not being able to completely move over to a civilian life, and therefore he falls into something like private investigation, which fits his model, but also gives him autonomy, and that's the lack of oversight by the forces, and he loses that. In the story, he a friend of his commits suicide.
Okay.
Which is a common theme in a lot of soldiers' lives. They have a lot of friends who depart through that route. Yeah. And but he grows suspicious of that it doesn't fit that person's personality.
Oh, okay.
And so he goes rooting, but he's a policeman at heart, so he needs evidence and he needs leads, and he fights with himself over whether he's just assuming that some things happened rather than what he can prove, but that ends up leading him down a pathway into so the book itself is called Protegimus, which is the close protection unit's motto in the Royal Military Police, and it's their motto, we protect, and there's a CP team, close protection team, that is working against the country, and the we protect is actually a play on words, because they're not protecting who they should be protecting.
I like this already. I mean, you've mentioned that the main protagonist, the main character in the book is based on yourself. Is there any other interesting characters that come into the story along the way?
Yeah, there's quite a few. There are amalgamations of people that I know, people that I've met, and Catherine, the main protagonist's wife. What I've tried to do is the characters do things that you wouldn't really expect them to do to a certain extent, but it would be natural for that character. So Catherine, who is the wife of Henry, normally in a normal situation, you'd have the wife would be very happy that their husband has left the forces and is now spending more time with their family, but in fact she doesn't like that, and the reasons why that becomes clear throughout the book, that she's not there for the right reasons, she's there for other reasons. And so I've tried to use their characteristics that I've basically had previously. Some people I've known that stay together while they're in the forces, and then as soon as the force that time finishes, they split up.
Gosh.
And so I've tried to use that story in this, but create reasons why.
Would anybody recognise themselves in your books, perhaps?
A couple people might. The friend that works at SP3C, which is the Service Police Cyber Crime Centre, that is an amalgamation of two people, and I've already told them both that they're the basis of that. And I've used people's names. So again, though, I've spoken to those individuals and said, I've used your name, but it's not based on you. So,
phew, a little get out of jail free card there. I mentioned the introduction that you're from Burnley. Is the book set in Lancashire?
I don't explicitly. So yes, ish. So the first part of the story is set in Oldham. He moves. He goes to Oldham to deal with a private investigative issue. But I intimate he's from a northern middle town, and he basically is coming from the Lancashire area. He sits in a cafe where he does all his work. That is based on a B road in Lancashire, in rural Lancashire.
Oh, nice.
So tie Lancashire in, and Lancashire is definitely at the core of that character, but the majority of the story does take place in Yorkshire, and he feels the fish out of water on that side of the hills, because that's not his normal habitat.
Right, you've got a book out. We've been talking about the main character is based on your own character, but what comes first for you? Is it the characters or the plot? Like, where do you even start writing a book?
Well, I'll take it back to the start, really. So I am obviously the basis of the character. So that character came first. And my autobiography autobiography, I hate to say it, my memoirs of my army career are what started me off on that process.
Brilliant.
So how I wrote that book was obviously just through time, and I wrote it very simplistically and through a timeline. Once I had that written, I sort of caught the bug and I wanted to continue, but I felt like that story had been told and I wanted to tell a new story. I built the character of Henry, but then I built a plot and I built a reason for why everything happened.
Oh, okay.
And then I put Henry into the mix, and then I would suggest, I'd ask myself, what would I do in that situation? How would I solve that problem? How would I deal with that issue? What would I do next? How would I? And then and that's how the book really took. And what I found was that about 2/3 of the way through my writing, I realised that the bad guy actually wasn't the main bad guy.
Oh.
There was another bad guy behind it all. And so that was really interesting to see how that took shape in my head without actually being planned. I was just, reading through my notes, and I was like, there's got to be a puppeteer to this. There must be a reason for all this happening.
When I watch TV shows or I read a book, for me, it's always about the why. Why are people doing what they're doing? And I think a lot of the time when I enjoy true crime stuff, and I think it's because I'm always interested in the why, what's motivating them. And I think, like you say, it's fascinating actually that you were like, oh, that's actually not the bad guy, although it was originally the bad guy. Yes. I wonder how common that is for people to sort of change it up. Have you find the writing process quite a cathartic thing? Because obviously writing your autobiography or your memoirs, whatever, that must kind of, because like you've mentioned, you write it in chronological order. And like you say, it's fairly simplistic in its approach. But then doing this must have been totally different.
Yes. It was my wife's idea, to be honest. I'm quite a creative person. I run a YouTube channel. I do a lot of history of Burnley and little bits and bats. We did like a history of Turf Moor from its inception as an army camp, firing range, all the way to where we're playing football right now, cricket. And I was struggling. I'd come out of the forces. Feels a little bit like you're falling off a cliff without a parachute or any support. Because
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm sort of led to believe, and maybe I'm wrong, that when you're in the army and you go in, do they not help you like get another job and stuff? But
they don't help you get a job. What they do is a resettlement process.
That's what I meant.
So they provide you with like CV writing, and they give you some money to go and do other courses.
To retrain, essentially. Because some of the skills you learn in the forces aren't compatible with civilian life. But it doesn't prepare you for the edge. One day I'm a sergeant major in the British Army commanding 450 people. The day after, I'm just in charge of yourself.
Pete Briggs, unemployed, and no life. So I struggled with that transition, and I was also struggling with a lot of things that I'd done or had been experienced in the forces, as probably a lot of people do. And so my wife started telling me to write my stories down, to put them in, and we had some, dementia is a problem in life at the moment, and I didn't want to forget those stories. I wanted to be able to carry those stories over. I've got some very funny stories, very heartfelt stories, some painful stories. So my wife just implored me to write it down, and that became the basis of that book. The most difficult chapters were the ones that I wrote about my 3 tours of Iraq, and those were those were the centre of the book, really. And then everything else just fell into that. I'd actually got to, I think it's 20 chapters long, is my memoirs, and I got to about chapter 17 and I gave up. I was like, I don't need to write it anymore. I've extinguished my ghosts. I feel free. And my wife's like, you've got to finish it. People want to read this. People want to see it. So I finished it, and then that just led me down the route of I had enjoyed finishing it off. I finished editing it. I'd enjoyed that process, and that's why I went into a second book.
What's the release date for your new book?
1st of April, April Fool's Day.
Oh, lovely.
So, yes.
And why did you choose to self-publish them?
There's a number of reasons. First and foremost, it's obviously expensive to go through a literary agent, to go and, Penguin or HarperCollins. None of those people are ever going to pick me up as an individual. And I found it a really just an easy route. I think a lot of people, when you're starting off, just want to have a route into completing it. So, YouTube gives a really easy way for people to put videos and stories out there. And Amazon gave me an opportunity through the KDP process. It's so easy. Really, you can just write, and I implore everybody, if you feel like you've got a story to tell. My dad writes poems, for example. I've told him go and put them on a book and publish it on Amazon. It is a cathartic feeling. It's a feeling of being able to tell your story, and the process is very, very easy and simple. The formatting was a pain.
Something else,
it took
Learning
me a long
curve.
while to figure that out. But once you have that, once you've got that nailed down, then it's really easy to put a book on. I took 3-4 hours on Sunday to finalise that book completely, and now it's there, ready to go, 1st of April.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. What's next for you then? Have you got? Do you think that Protegimus will be your last book, one of a series? Where's your head at with it?
So there's a number of routes open for me right now. So the Protegimus leaves a lot open at the end.
Oh, I love this.
There's stories that can be told at the conclusion. The bad guy gets the opportunity to leave.
Oh, okay.
Not the one that you think he is, but the person there might be.
Yeah, right.
And so that story has opportunity to go forward. I've got other ideas that I was going to tell stories of Henry whilst he was in the forces. I've got an idea where he does a 9 shifts in Germany, so earlys, mids and lates in Germany, and all the scenarios and stories that could take place over those 3 days that are tied together. So that would be a full story itself. And then I've got a friend called Greg Stevenson. I don't know, MBE. Greg Stevenson was in the forces. He was in Afghanistan. He got badly injured, and he lost both his legs. And then he then became part of the Paralympic team for GB, won a gold medal in Paris in the summer, and got his MBE at Christmas. And now he's a local lad. He lives in Cone area, just outside of Cone.
Yeah.
I'm going to meet him tomorrow. I'm going to talk about potentially putting a book together for his story, because I think his story, mine's funny stories and mine's got some hardship, but it never happened as much to me as what has happened to him.
I think with him though, essentially it's there is a beginning, there is a middle, and then there's this incredible end.
Absolutely.
That even in his darkest hour, I guess he could have never predicted that. But I really feel, having met you, that you've been bitten by like a literary bug. And am I right in thinking you said you launched the book April Fool's Day? Have you got a book signing? Is that right?
5th of April at Burnley Library.
Nice.
I'm going to have both my books there. We'll do a book signing. I've actually done the first chapter as an audio book. Wow. So I edited a video together for that, and then we're going to show that on the day, just to give people a feeling of how the book feels and what the story and the characters feel like. So there's a little taster for people before they if they want to buy it.
Oh, so excited for you. I really am. Thanks so much for coming in. Best of success. Before I let you go, obviously you've mentioned when it's available, you've mentioned your book signing, but you haven't said where you can get your hands on the book, or an audio version or a digital version. So the memoirs Beneath the Red Cap is on Amazon right now. That's available. And then Protegimus comes out on the 1st of April on Amazon. I have got it with a couple of proper authors, proper publishers, but we're seeing how that goes. Oh, well, definitely keep us updated. I've really, really enjoyed our chat. It's been so much fun.